Bonnie LDM, Jeff Harris, Roy Jung, Angelo Cuso, Eileen LaRufa, Robert Whittaker, and that's it from our end of it. So,
Okay.
Scott?
Yes, good evening. My name is Marnie Elias Pavi. I'm the district manager at CB11, and I am going to initiate the live stream to Facebook. Okay, and we are live. Lori?
Okay, well, I just introduced us from CB11. So at this point, if DOT, Leroy, you want to take it from here and introduce everybody?
Unmute.
Leroy, you're on mute.
I was saying I won't be able to introduce everyone because I don't know everyone that's here, but I will definitely introduce myself, which is Leroy Branch from the Brooklyn Borough Commissioner's Office. I do know we have, just so everyone knows, Rhonda Messa has joined us. She's also from the office, and Claudette Workman is also on as one of the under my name. So those are the three individuals that are coming out of the Borough Commissioner's Office. And I will turn it over to Jonine. You want to introduce yourself, Jonine?
Yes, I'm Jonine Kidder. I'm the Executive Director of Community Affairs in the Division of Bridges and the Chief of Staff.
Thank you. Alicia?
Hi, I'm Alicia Posner. I'm the Deputy Director of Safety Projects and Programs at DOT.
Okay, Olivia?
Hi, my name's Olivia Gibbison. I'm the Assistant Director of Capital Development for Research, Implementation, and Safety here at DOT.
Is there anyone else online from DOT?
Yes, I'm Hayden Benjamin.
Oh.
I'm the Director of Capital Program Engineering.
Thank you for joining us, Hayden. Anyone else from DOT? So I guess we can go right into DDC.
Good evening, I'm Jivaki Freya from DDC Design Infrastructure. Thank you.
I'm Minnie Thomas from DDC Program Management. I'm the Director of Brooklyn Program Management.
Good evening, I'm Saptashika Chaudhary. I'm from DDC Design. I joined with Yugurgis Prias with me. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? I don't believe so. I think that's it.
There's somebody from Leroy, somebody named Yang, who was signed in under you from CDM Smith.
Yes, yes, this is Yang Liu. I'm with CDM Smith. We are the consultant for DDC for the design of this project.
Thank you. We have two agenda items this evening. The first one I'm going to turn over to Jonine. It's a brief update on the 17th Avenue Bridge. So Jonine, take it away.
So again, good evening, everybody. Hi, Marnie. I just saw you just a few days ago. Always nice to be in your company. Just a really quick update. Obviously, the news on 17th Avenue is not what I wish I was here to share with you. We closed the bridge in November and had hoped to have the bridge completely removed by this time. We've run into some technical issues there in getting approvals for the removal of the structure from the engineering team. I don't have a complete date right now or what the targeted date, but we're hoping it would be sometime in August. Before we're able to do that, we'll obviously have a very large all-agency meeting that the community board will be part of, where we're coordinating the lane closures. There will be limited overnight closures that will require the full closure of the parkway to lift out the bridge down into pieces onto the side of the road where it will be disassembled and removed. These closures are very similar to the ones that we've done all along the Belt Parkway. They're limited to 15 minutes at a time. And when the contractor actually cuts and removes one section, he gets 15 minutes to work. And then when that period is done, the queue of cars dissipates before he can get another 15-minute window. And the maximum he's allowed is 2 of those windows in one working shift. And it will be between 11 p.m. and 5 p.m. This is something obviously you're familiar with. We did it at Bay Ridge Avenue. We did it all along Patagate, Mill Basin, and Garrettson. All our other bridges were done essentially the same way. So I'm hoping to have a date for you for the lift out and removal of 17th Avenue. Hopefully you'll be invited to an all agency meeting sometime next summer. That's where we are. Did receive a request from the community board about the detour. We took a look at it again, and we do think that the detour that was included for pedestrians who are moving westbound is perhaps not the best detour bringing folks to Bay 8th Street. We can remove the signs directing people to that detour, essentially the westbound detour, and direct pedestrians back to the eastbound detour, back to Bay Parkway, if that's the preference. For us, it's a matter of some sign removals. If people from the community choose, because they know the area, to use that detour, that's something that individuals on their choice can always go and use that detour, but we can remove the signs and not encourage people to use that detour if that's the community board's request. Do we want to do a question or two on 17th before I just do something quickly on 27th?
Yep. I don't know if it's Marnie or Lori. Do you want to facilitate any questions that may come up?
Just a quick question about this now. It's this delay in terms of the approval not going through. So obviously this is going to extend the end date for this project. Do we have a new end date?
I don't have a specific end date for you right now because we have challenged the contractor to give us what's called a recovery plan. Before we would entertain any official time extensions for them, we tell them they must go back and come back with a recovery plan to show us how they intend to finish the job on the contract they signed up for. One of the thoughts that we posed to them is that they could actually work on both bridges at the same time because, as you know, 27th Avenue remains open. So our contract requirement was that 27th remain open, and we do expect them to come back to us with a plan that shows how they're going to recover essentially what's almost at this point approximately a 1 year behind schedule on 17th.
So, Janine, number one, thank you very much for coming this evening and providing an update. My question is, what delayed the permitting? Is it on the city's end or is it contractor related?
It's actually, generally it's on the entire team, although I certainly can't point fingers back at our own folks. The contractor is required to present us with a demolition and removal plan that is prepared by a licensed engineer. With that said, simpler said than done, particularly for this bridge, which is a single arch structure. There's no center span. And so the engineer that they hire has to be somebody who's specifically qualified in bridge demolition and removal. And they have come up with a scheme. They've come up with 1 or 2 schemes that our design team, the AECOM team that now performs what we call construction support services, and our resident engineering team, which is KS Engineers, both of them have had safety concerns about the presentation and approach that the contractor's engineer presented, because the bridge actually has to be cut and brought down in more than one piece. There is not sufficient space to lift it out. There will be more than one crane, obviously, that will be required to be brought onto the roadway. That is another challenge to this. They have to show us how they will get cranes that are sufficient in capacity to lift out the segments of the bridge. How are they getting them to the site, and how will they operate, and how they will take the bridge down in pieces? It's a fairly complicated arrangement on a good day. There is in fact also a DEP culvert underneath the bridge, very close to the bridge, and we have to be sure that the cranes that they bring in, that structure can support that weight. So there's many facets to this and many agency approvals that are required. It's not Simply, the contractor probably could have gotten ahead of this a little better. But safety is our biggest issue, and we want to be sure that the ultimate plan that we approve as an agency is really been vetted by all the engineering teams that need to have eyes on it.
Yeah, I just asked that because I guess while we haven't done pedestrian bridges, we have had other bridge work done in the district. And I was a bit surprised that this wasn't in place before the project started, that we weren't aware of, I guess, those challenges. But okay, thank you.
So again, and I can give you a call tomorrow, I'll follow up with you
Sure.
tomorrow. I had the team come up with this neat little sketch today of the existing detour. And as I said, we walked through it on Google. And I do know that having people cross across that ramp is really not the best idea. I think our designers were trying to find a path to the west for folks who might live west and a path to the east for folks who might live east. But if that's the board's preference, we can just take the whole west detour out and have a single detour back to Bay 8th Street. I don't want to take my colleagues' time today. We can follow up. I think, Marnie, at your level, you could tell me you know what the committee wants.
Absolutely. So we put it in writing and we requested that detour go east.
And that's what I think we'll be able to do. I just need to work
Right.
with the team now to get the contractor out there and remove some signs and move some signs around.
Thank
then
you
we
so
will-
much.
And we'll have Oscar send out an update. I know he's been coming to the cabinet meetings and he's been coming to your other meetings. So he'll be putting out that message to clarify this as well. So just quickly on 27th Avenue, things on 27th Avenue are going much better. The contractor has actually been in the process of sinking the piles that will support the new bridge. The soil there turned out to be a little bit different than what we had anticipated. It was a little softer soil. And so they had to install some different piles and a bunch of additional piles as well. And there is also a culvert structure that actually runs diagonally right under the bridge. And so we've had to have additional conversations with DEP. The design side of DEP obviously approved the design drawings. And now when you're in construction, the other half of DEP also has to be involved in observing the work and making sure that their facility is protected. So 27th Avenue is moving along. And as you know, the existing bridge remains open. The promenade is completely open. And we have removed all of the lead-based paint that was on both of the bridges. And that's what I have for you for tonight.
Any other questions?
No, but I'm sorry, I just did want to acknowledge that Assemblyman William Colton is also here tonight.
Okay, if not, I'm going to turn it back to Leroy and Marnie. We can
Yes.
talk tomorrow or Friday.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you, Jolene.
Good night, everybody.
Okay, so now we're gonna move into the 86th Street Capital Project. And I'm not sure who's actually doing the presentation, Alicia or Olivia.
That's me tonight. Thanks,
Is you
Leroy.
Olivia? Okay,
That's okay.
so I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Give me one moment and I'll bring the presentation out. Okay, everyone's seeing the presentation now?
Yes, we are.
Excellent. Okay, great. So good evening. My name is Olivia Gibbison. I'm an Assistant Director for Capital Development at the Research Implementation and Safety Team here at DOT. And I'm here tonight to talk to you about our Safe Routes to Transit 86th Street Capital Project. Because this is a capital project, DOT is the sponsor agency, but the project is being managed by our colleagues at the Department of Design and Construction. A number of those people are here tonight and will be able to also answer additional questions. And their consultant, CDM Smith, who's working on the project. And I will note that the project also includes scope from our partner agency at the Department of Environmental Protection. So Safe Routes to Transit this project is part of the Safe Routes to Transit program, which is New York City DOT's program to reduce barriers and address problems with pedestrian and bicycle access to public transportation. The program has particular focus on unsafe waiting conditions under elevated trains, non-ADA compliant bus stops, and intersection safety in general. And these bus stop improvements generally improve bus service and provide improved safety and accessibility, particularly for those with mobility challenges. So this project has been in the works for a while. I see that Assemblymember Colton is here, who initially reached out to DOT to request improvements on the corridor in 2014. In 2015, DOT presented a concept design of this project to the CB11 Transportation Committee. In July of 2019, DOT applied for additional federal funds from the Federal Transit Administration for the project, and that application was supported by 6 different members of Congress. With the funding all secured in December of 2019, our colleagues at DDC sent the project initiation notification to Community Board 11, and in response, we received a letter from District Manager Elias Pavia requesting that the project take into consideration the longer buses that now are running on the corridor, as well as include benches and bike parking facilities. So the project, this project is focusing on the 1 mile corridor of 86th Street between 19th Avenue and 25th Avenue. I'm sure many of you or all of you are familiar with the corridor, but if you're not, it's a busy commercial corridor with high pedestrian volumes. This project also includes DEP work on 20th Avenue between 86th Street and Bath Avenue. And there's also some DEP work on 86th Street that'll happen between 19th Avenue and 21st Avenue. For those who aren't familiar, 20th Avenue is a largely residential neighborhood street. There are multiple transit lines running on 86th Street, most significantly the elevated D train with stops at 20th Avenue, Bay Parkway, and 25th Avenue. And then we have the B1 running on 86th Street, the B6, and the B82, B82 SBS running on Bay Parkway. You can see here there's a small screenshot or shot of the Brooklyn Bass map to make that clear. We're the research, implementation, and safety team, so we're also looking at safety along the corridor. So when we dive into the safety data, we see that 86th Street is a Vision Zero priority corridor, and there have been a total of 238 injuries along the corridor between 2015 and 2019. Within that same period, 13 of those injuries were severe. Between 2015 and 2022, there have also been 3 fatalities, 1 at 21st Avenue and 2 at Bay Parkway. When we look at the crash patterns, we found that 22% of the pedestrian injury crashes involved a pedestrian who was crossing with the signal, so when they had the light, and this typically indicates to us that vehicles are failing to yield to pedestrians in the crosswalk and at the intersections. The primary crash types we saw were rear ends, side swipes, and left turn crashes. When we look at the existing conditions on the corridor, we can see that the bus stops are located in the middle of the roadway, and this forces bus riders to get on and off the bus in the street, just like you can see here at 86th Street and 24th Avenue. These in-street bus stops create dangerous conflicts between pedestrians and vehicles, like what you can see here at 86th Street and 23rd Avenue. There are existing bus islands at some locations on the corridor, like here at 86th Street and Bay Parkway. However, those current islands are substandard for our accessibility guidelines, and they don't accommodate those articulated buses that have been running on the corridor since the summer of 2020. In addition, the pedestrian ramps, which are these here shown at the corner don't meet ADA standards, and they're often highly constrained by the elevated subway infrastructure, the support poles and other utility poles. And this prevents safe access for people who use wheelchairs, walkers, and other people with mobility issues. On 20th Avenue, we also see poor roadway conditions, and our partners at DEP inform us that that's to do with the underground infrastructure there. So the project scope. This project will install 13 total bus bulbs and bus pads. 11 of those will be on 86th Street servicing the B1, and then 2 of them will be on Bay Parkway here servicing the B82 SBS bus. This project is being coordinated with the MTA bus network redesign and will incorporate a consolidation of the northbound, westbound stop at 19th Avenue and both the stops at 24th Avenue. I'm going to go into that in a little bit more detail after this. So hold on. The project will also include curb extensions at 20th Avenue, Bay Parkway, and 24th Avenue, which is going to provide additional pedestrian safety improvements and also help us meet those ADA accessibility standards at those constrained corners that I mentioned earlier. There will also be DEP sewer work along 20th Avenue, which will include trench restoration and full street reconstruction. So you can see here the extent there will be trench restoration and full roadway reconstruction on 20th Avenue between 86th Street and Benson Avenue, and then additional trench restoration only between Benson Avenue and Bath Avenue. In coordination with that work, we'll be installing curb extensions at 20th Avenue and Benson Avenue, and the parking lanes on 20th Avenue will include precast porous concrete panels. Diving in a little bit further to some of those bus issues that I mentioned earlier, looking here at the existing stop at 19th Avenue over here is only 300 feet away from the other existing stop at Bay 20th Street. Typically, our MTA recommends about 750 to 1,000 feet minimum between stops because this substandard bus spacing really does contribute to slower bus speeds. When we were looking at the bus stops here at 24th Avenue, further down the corridor, you can see that the existing bus stop overlaps with the existing driveway of the McDonald's here. So that's a significant constraint. And this situation is also present at 25th Avenue. So there's an existing driveway. I believe it's an oncology center, but this is the existing bus stop location. So if we sort of summarize the bus consolidation and changes that we're proposing for the project, we're going to consolidate the redundant northbound/westbound stop at 19th Avenue with the existing stop that's 1 block away at 20th Street. At Bay 20th Street, I beg your pardon. That Bay 20th Street stop is actually not in the roadway because of the way the elevated train turns at New Utrecht there. The bus is able to pull to the curb, so we're not proposing a bus bulb at that location. If we go down to the end of the project limits, the 25th Avenue, the northbound / westbound stop that I mentioned will be relocated to the mid-block in the next block. So that's at about Bay 38th Street. And that will allow us to maintain the bus stop at this location, which is very busy and also has the transfer to the subway at 25th Avenue. As part of the bus network redesign that the MTA put together, this project consolidates the stops at 24th Avenue, which will also avoid the driveway conflict that I mentioned earlier and create better spacing for the buses, particularly between that new stop at Bay 38th Street. If we look here, this is an image of the typical design that we'll be applying across the corridor. So You can see here the project includes a bus bulb, which is essentially a large curb extension, and that's going to provide safe, ADA accessible waiting space for bus riders. The waiting space is typically 80 feet long, so that's long enough to now accommodate those articulated buses. And those bus bulbs will include benches. Bike racks and wayfinding will also be included at selected locations. We're also going to investigate the possibility of including trees and tree pits at the new bus bulbs, but that's dependent on the MTA approval due to the proximity to the elevated train. The proposal also includes bus pads at all of the bus stops, which will improve the durability of the roadway at locations where buses are stopping frequently. And then finally, to enhance the pedestrian safety along the corridor, we'll be including curb extensions, which are going to reduce the crossing distance for pedestrians and slow turning vehicles, and look to address those failure to yield crashes that we identified in the safety data. So this is just the project toolkit with some real world examples. You can see here on the left, this is a bus bulb we've installed at a different location, curb extension, wayfinding totem. This is what a bus pad looks like in real life, our standard bike racks and city benches. The schedule for this project, we started the design in the fall of 2020. That's the summer of 2022, very almost. And so we're presenting here tonight to the Community Board 11 Transportation Committee. When we finalize the preliminary design, which we're aiming for fall of 2022, that will also be distributed to the Community Board. We're looking to finalize the design in the fall of 2023, and the target for construction is fall 2025, with the expected duration being 2 years for construction. Our partners at the Department of Design and Construction are also applying the Envision Sustainability Rating System for this project. This is a rating system and planning guide that is created by the Institute for Sustainable Infrastructure that provides guidance on how to plan, design, and deliver sustainable and resilient infrastructure. And for this project, we're targeting a Silver Envision Award level for this project. We recap the sustainability and resiliency components of the project. We're going to be improving access to transit by building those bus bulbs and bus pads, installing high visibility crosswalks, and providing new ADA compliant pedestrian ramps. Where possible, we're going to look to introduce new tree plantings and tree pits, which is going to provide shade in a high heat vulnerability index area. It's going to add greenery and reduce the impervious surfaces along the corridor. We're also looking to improve the drainage system. So we're adding new catch basins, which are those drains that are in the roadway, and catch basin connections to existing and proposed sewers. And we're going to upgrade the sewers. So either rehabilitate, relocate, or replace existing sewers, or install new ones as needed. So to summarize the project benefits as a whole, this project will provide safe, fully accessible bus stops along 86th Street by installing bus bulbs and bus pads at all stops. It will upgrade the bus stops by installing amenities like benches, bike racks, and wayfinding. It's going to enhance pedestrian safety on 86th Street and 20th Avenue by installing curb extensions and shortening crossing distance and slowing turning vehicles. And it will improve the roadway conditions and the underground infrastructure on 20th Avenue by reconstructing the roadway and upgrading or replacing the existing sewers and water mains. So that is it for my presentation now. I'm happy to return to any slides or answer any questions now.
Thank you so much, Olivia. Just a quick question on the timeline. I know it says 2023, the design period will end, and then construction starts 2025, and it goes for 2 years, I guess, to 2027. So I know procurement and all that, but what's going on for 2 full years between 2023 and 2025?
Well, there's a lot of coordination that has to happen, but maybe someone from DDC will be better positioned to sort of speak to that schedule. You know, I will say, like, yes, that procurement and it does take a long time for us to really get ready for construction. So I don't know if anyone here from DDC would like to jump in at this point.
I've never seen it last 2 years for procurement on other projects. So that's why I'm curious as to what's going on in this 2-year period.
Okay, I don't know if anyone can anyone see in the DDC?
Yeah, I'm Minnie from DDC.
Hi, Minnie. Do you
The
think you can fill this question?
Yeah, the funding is in fiscal year 25. So the construction start will be, the fiscal year start July 1st, 2024. So the construction will be sometime around that. And if we finish design early or something, we may be able to bring the funding. But right now the funding is in fiscal year 25.
I see. Thanks, Minnie.
Could you do a breakdown of the funding?
The funding, I don't have the exact numbers here, but the project is largely city funded with additional FTA funding, which I mentioned earlier, for Federal Transit Authority funding. If you'd like the exact numbers, I think we can follow up with that.
Okay. Thank you. Robert, you have your hands up first, then Jeff.
Good evening. How are you?
Welcome.
You're talking about the Bay 20th stop, which is at the entrance of New Utrecht Avenue. That is a dangerous intersection to begin with. When you have those turning lights turning on the bus stop, that's why I worked so hard to get that stop removed for the time being, because you're going to have somebody step off a bus, and walk out into the middle of that intersection where they can't see. So is there any chance that that intersection inside of itself can look at for some safety upgrades? Because that's going to get somebody killed. I fought a long time to get that bus stop removed. That's for two. For two, you said you had an advance notice on the MTA bus redesign project when you're talking to the consolidating of the bus stops. So we haven't seen any of that.
No, that's true. They haven't, we did early coordination with them so that this project would be in line with their goals.
No, I understand it, but you got junior high schools that come off of 24th Avenue for consolidation. Okay, so you're gonna have them walk to 25th Avenue. Okay, and now you're gonna move that 25th bus stop back closer to the other side when you said they're doing it, so you take it away from that driveway. Right.
Correct.
So now you're really gonna consolidate two bus stops that make it one, really. When you're talking about the
Yes.
24th stop, but you got junior high schools that go there. Okay, that's a critical stop for schools. Unfortunately, but my main focus is the stop for New Utrecht Avenue. When that bus pulls in, you say it's out of the street, yes, but while there's a bus there, people are curving past onto New Utrecht Avenue, which is going to cause an accident situation. That's why I fought so hard to get it removed initially.
Okay. So this project, that Bay 20th Street is outside of the limits of this project, but we can look at your concerns and see if there are other improvements.
If I'm not mistaken, that was one of the here. You said that you identified that the Bay 20th stops there. It's not there anymore.
Correct.
It's been removed. So now you're going to remove the 19th Avenue stop and make it Bay 20th for where people get off. Marty, you and I had that sign, that do not cross sign up at that location, because I told you somebody's going to get killed at that location.
Okay.
And that's dangerous.
Okay, we can we'll talk to the MTA about that that process there, but yeah, we were really we're looking to work with them on their consolidation goals and also the constraints of people alighting the bus in the roadway. So we can follow up on that.
And those one other thing when it comes to the bus consolidation here is we're putting in these bigger stops. We don't know what the final result of the MTA bus consolidation, whether they're gonna do something different or that stuff. So if we're doing all this work, is all this work gonna be done after they roll out or finish their implementation of the bus consolidation? So we're not doing something, paying money, or the city's paying money for, and then having to change something.
Right, so that's why we did this early coordination with them. They've done their review of this stretch, and we're incorporating their recommendations. So they've assured us that all of the locations where we are providing bus bulbs and bus stop infrastructure, those stops will be maintained. So yes, they haven't finished their full redesign yet, which is why we did early coordination with them to make sure that exactly as you say, we're not spending the city's money on something that's later going to be removed.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hi, in addition
Gotcha.
to the groundwork being done, is there any consideration of putting netting or screenings underneath the L to prevent anything from falling?
That's definitely a question for the MTA. We can't affix anything to the underside of their structures.
I mean,
So we can
that-
follow up. I haven't seen that anywhere, so I'm not sure
Well-
if that's something we do, but we can ask.
That is a main concern because there have been stuff falling from the tracks
Yeah.
in the past. I mean, and people are waiting underneath the L for the buses. Somebody, might get hit, which, is avoidable by installing those nets and screens to be able to catch those falling items.
Yeah, we will follow up with the MTA about that.
I mean, that's a big issue. And, being that you're actually open underneath the L and there is no protection at all from anything falling from the tracks.
Yeah.
Did anybody else have anything? I don't see any other hands up. Moni, do you see anybody else's hands up?
No, but I would like to ask a question.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Thank you. So number one, you showed the standard bike racks. Bay Parkway I'm quoting from the city, they put out a report today. So some of their numbers show that in 2019, there's approximately 50,000 riders a week at Bay Parkway.
Yeah.
Those small bike racks will not accommodate the bicyclists that we have.
So I hear you. Yeah, and I mentioned your letter response earlier because we're definitely looking into providing additional bike parking. And I think that the space that we're providing on both 86th Street and Bay Parkway. So we can look at doing more than one rack. We do what we call a corral.
Yes.
And so we can look into that. I'll just say that there are some specific siding constraints at bus stops and making sure that there's like sufficient clearance and everything. So we're working with our bike rack team to get a good set of siding guidelines so that we can provide additional bike parking beyond just one single rack, but also still meet those other sort of siding guidelines specifically designed for bus stops. So yeah, we're working on that, but I hear you that you're saying just one single rack is not going to be sufficient for the number of cyclists.
Absolutely not.
Mm-hmm.
And the other question, I have a couple of questions. Okay.
Sure.
So you mentioned the sewer work on 86th Street between 19th and 21st Avenue. Yeah, so this is the first time that we're hearing that there are issues there. I know I would have to reach out to DEP, but we have DDC here. Maybe they could expand on what the problems are. I thought, if memory serves me correctly, that segment was part of Owl's Head Area A that was reconstructed quite a few years ago.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I definitely think DDC is going to be the right person to answer this question, and maybe we'll need to follow up with DEP and get clarity. Minnie or anyone else, do we have clarity around the impetus for the work on 86th Street between 19th Avenue and 21st? is that something we can follow up with?
Good evening, everyone. Basically, I would say that the scope for the sewer work that we have in 86th Street is almost just we have a few repair, but it's nothing, you know, like we are replacing all the system or upgrading something. Definitely we can provide more information because I don't have the CPI to be to specify the scope, but if you need more detail, definitely we can provide it after this meeting.
But the work that is typically more like repair work, right? Minor
Yes,
repair work rather
basically.
than the major changes that we're looking at in the other corridor.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
Andrea just put in the chat, primary replacement of water main.
Right.
Yeah, basically in 20th Avenue, we are replacing the whole system for the distribution for the water main. But in
Right.
80th Street, we don't have too much scope, DP scope.
Okay, so we'll follow up with exactly what's sort of planned for that section on 86th Street. But it sounds like it's the most major work is happening on 20th Ave, and it's more minor minor repairs happening on 86th Street.
And so then I would ask you to please look at Bay Parkway because that's a location where many of the businesses have flooding and sewer backups.
Okay.
So while we're doing that work, we would ask that you look at that. And the other question I have is the new bus pads islands.
Sorry, just to be clear, I'm just going to go to the
bus
slide.
stops at Bay Parkway and 20th
Oh, yeah.
Avenue where you're extending and doing the bump outs. Can you tell me how much longer they will be?
So at Bay Parkway, the stops will be marginally longer, but I'm not sure. Maybe 20 or so feet longer. I can get the exact.
Yeah.
And then so typically at the moment, because right now the bus stop is just shown as just like a painted subway pole, and so they don't have sort of an official length, but the lengths that we have at say Bay Parkway, where we do have the bus islands, I think we're going to be extending them by around 40 feet. They currently only accommodate the smaller, shorter buses, which are about 40 feet. So we'll be extending them to be 40 feet longer than they are now, I believe. I can get the exact number for you.
Okay, no, I don't need the exact number. The reason I'm asking is that when we met in 2015, Ms. Windsor, our transportation chair, wanted to know if DOT would be conducting a survey for truck deliveries and potential loading, unloading signage, especially between Bay Parkway and 23rd Avenue. That's probably our most congested segment. And currently, I mean, if you've been down there and walked through the area, you see there's large fruit stores that receive a tremendous amount of deliveries that have to double park and sometimes triple park, and it blocks actually the buses from getting through there. So while you're extending, are you taking the opportunity to potentially put in some designated loading, unloading areas?
The proposal doesn't include that at the moment, but that's definitely something that we can include. If you have any specific locations that you think would recommend, we would love for you to share them with us, but we can also review the corridor and suggest additional loading.
Well, there is currently, there's none.
Yes, right. Sorry,
Okay.
dedicated learning.
Yes.
I should
yes,
rephrase.
Yes, yes.
Absolutely.
So I think Robert's going to jump in. I see his hand raised again, but I think definitely to begin with between Bay Parkway and 23rd Avenue.
Okay, thank you.
That's the most congested segment. Robert?
Yeah, I got a question. When we start putting this stuff in for an already tight corridor, have we spoken about the MTA before we do any of this project on the 86th Street? for any track work that has to get up, because once they start, if they have to just start doing track work, when they do track work on under 86th Street, it's already bad enough as it is without the extensions here. So have you guys spoken with the MTA about any above track work that, they might want to do for long term, because that may affect what happens on the ground?
Yeah, so I don't think we've been made aware of any proposed track work. I think what I'll say is that for all of these projects, they require city permits, and so that the permits are not able to overlap. So there certainly will not be both like active construction and track work happening at the same time. And there's a sort of strict set of constraints around that. I don't know if DDC has anything to add, but I'll just say that MTA, we've been very closely coordinating with them, and they certainly haven't made us aware of any planned track work. But I think you're saying that that when they have to do track work, that further constrains the roadway. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because if you're going to have major buses going through there with an already constrained as it is, and you're going to now put these extended, I'm not saying that they shouldn't happen, but I'm saying is, can we reach out to the MTA and say, you know what, before we start doing all this work, do all the extra above work that you have to do, that you may need to do as a preventive measure, so that you don't have to have that ultra conservative, because like Marty said, between 23rd and Bay Parkway is truck traffic. But now you're going to expand that out, which is going to change traffic patterns. But then if you have emergency construction under the MTA, I know emergency is a big thing, but if they could do maybe some of this preventive work on the D line before we start altering the street like that.
Yeah, there are specific, so we have a specific contract with the MTA whenever we do work in and around their structures. So yes, I think we can say that we will be sure to coordinate the construction with any of their work.
Eileen?
Unmute.
I need a little clarity.
Sure.
Do you intend to stop the 19th Avenue bus stop and go with the New Utrecht?
Yes, that's what I presented. I'm just going to bring the slide up so we have the visual. So yes,
That doesn't, it just doesn't make sense. You should keep the 19th Avenue. The New Utrecht doesn't serve any purpose. In fact, you should have gotten rid of it the way Robert said a long time ago. But don't get rid of the 19th Avenue.
So let me just explain. The stop at Bay 20th New Utrecht Avenue, you have a right turn arrow.
Right.
Okay. And you do not have a signed crosswalk going south, crossing 86th Street. And it's really dangerous for pedestrians. So we would ask that you please revisit that.
Okay, we'll take a look.
Okay.
Anybody else have any other questions or comments?
Can we get a copy of this presentation for our own record, so we, you know what, when I have a look at it, because like I said, the design is over the next 2 years, a year and a half. I would like, you know what, maybe scrutinize it a little more when I go outside and I look, okay, this is what they're talking about.
I will send a copy of the presentation to Marty.
And then we'll get comments together and we'll forward that to you, Leroy.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I think that's it.
Thank you so much.
Well, as always, thank you, Marnie, and the rest of Lori,
Yes.
and the rest of the board for allowing us to come make this presentation. I will definitely get the presentation to you tomorrow. Olivia will send it to me and I will pass it along. And we look forward to hearing your comments.
Yes, Leroy, thank you. Thank you to you and your team, DDC, and everybody else that's on the line. And I know this is far off, but I'm going to say this now, right? 2 years in advance. You will have a liaison on this project. Tell me yes.
DDC?
DDC? Yes.
We're seeing yes.
Andrea's mic is not working, so she wrote in the chat yes.
No problem, because that's really important, especially with the business community up there, if we have issues or we have a point person and outreach and I know you're going to have water shutdowns, so I just want to add that you don't do that during the holidays nor Lunar New Year when we have lots of celebrations. You take that into consideration in your timeline.
For sure.
Great. Well, thank you all so much. Have a great night, everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.